So I have decided I am not going to be lifting the new Jeep Wrangler. This is a 2024. It is in anvil color, and it is the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which is part of the reason I'm not going to be lifting it. But I've decided that I kind of dig it the way that it is. Now, some folks may say that the tires look a little small on here. Well, it's all a matter of preference, I suppose. I don't really think so, but I can see how some folks might say they look like donuts on there. I kind of like the look. What I really like about them is the offset on the wheels. That gets the tires outside of the fender wells a little bit, and I really do like the way that it looks. Now, what these are, they are 265/70 R17 wheels and tires, or tires, I guess. The wheels are 17s, obviously, and they are KMCs. Now, why? What brought me to this decision to not lift a Jeep? Because I do like lifted Jeeps. You know, I am going to be lifting the Tacoma back here. I think one lifted for me is probably enough. But this Jeep here is probably the biggest reason why I'm not lifting that Jeep there. Now, this is my wife's Jeep, of course. It is a 2018 Wrangler. It is the 2-door. You can see it's a Sport S. Same model as what we have out there, except I've got a little bit more modern stuff in it. Not a whole lot of change, but a little bit. Now, what she's running on her Jeep is a 285/70 R17 tire. So it's still on a 17-inch wheel, but obviously the bigger, heavier tires. Now, that's the first thing that weighed in on my decision. You see, her Jeep is a V6, naturally aspirated. So it's got more oomph, more power, and you definitely can feel it. It does have more power in it for sure, and I was afraid that if I raise mine up a bit and put bigger tires, because you know you'd have to put bigger tires on it, right? I mean, there's no way I would leave what's on it right now if I lifted it up. So those bigger tires, being that they are heavier, is going to rob some of the power from that Jeep. Now, I love acceleration and power, right? And the last thing I want to do is handicap the Jeep by weighing it down with heavier tires. That's not the only reason, though. The next and probably biggest reason is what the lift has done, this particular lift. And I know there are other options I could go with out there, right? But the ride quality, in my opinion, has been compromised by going with the particular lift we have on this Jeep. It's been lifted 3 inches, and it is a block and spacer lift. That kind of compacts all of the suspension, if you will, and provides for a much rougher ride. You know, the difference between her Jeep and mine out there is night and day. You know, I could actually see jumping in my Jeep and taking it on a long distance trip, no problem. Now, it's not going to be as smooth as, you know, a Lexus or a Cadillac or something like that, or even the new Tacoma, which, by the way, has a fantastic suspension setup on it. Nice and smooth, kind of feels like you're gliding. I love that. But hers, not so much. That figured in heavily to my decision. Now, the only thing I'm going to really miss, I guess, is the more aggressive stance. I mean, obviously, with the lift, we've got a more aggressive stance on this truck. What we didn't lose is that wheel and tire offset. She has a little bit more, which, granted, I think makes it look a little bit more beefy, I guess, than what mine does out there. But not so much that it's hugely noticeable, unless you have the 2 Jeeps sitting right next to each other, right? Another thing that figured in is fuel economy. Now, should you really be concerned about fuel economy if you're driving around in a Jeep Wrangler? No, I would say probably not. And I don't have the most fuel efficient vehicles anyway. Trucks, Jeeps. The best one that I have is the RAV4 that you probably saw sitting out there. It's getting over right about 25 miles per gallon or something like that. Her Jeep behind me right here, it's lucky if it gets 15, 16 miles per gallon. In my Jeep, sitting outside there, we're getting about, I think it's about 18, pushing 19 miles per gallon. And if I was to drive it more at higher speeds on the freeway, stuff like that, obviously I'd be getting better. I could see probably being in the 20s with that Jeep. So it would cost me more if indeed I went ahead and lifted that Jeep. Now, the final thing I think, of course, is always going to be cost. You know, I wouldn't go with the same lift that is on this Jeep. I would go or want to go with something more expensive. So you'd be getting in, and when I say more expensive, I'm not really talking about doing it just because of the financial aspect. I'm talking about something that would provide more of a suspension lift as opposed to a block and spacer to get the best ride that I could get. So I would be looking at probably somewhere, and you know, there's probably no limit, but I'd be looking somewhere probably between, I'm guessing $3,000 and $6,000, something like that, to go with a full suspension lift the way that you really should if you're concerned about ride quality. And that's frankly just not something I'm willing to do. I'm not going to put that kind of money in that Jeep, just not going to do it. And probably a lot of it has to do with this vehicle, which again is the new 2024 Tacoma. This is where I'm going to put the funds. This is my primary vehicle, I guess, for the channels. Plus, this is the one that I'm more interested in only because we already have a Jeep with a lift, to see how it goes, how it rides, what kind of improvement or lack thereof I get by putting some sort of a lift on this vehicle as opposed to that vehicle. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of go over that a little bit, let you guys know what I'm thinking. I know several times I've mentioned potentially going with a lift on the new Jeep out there. And honestly, it still kicks around in my head, you know, because I do really love lifted vehicles. I mean, again, if you look at the way this one looks, particularly from the sides and of course from the back, let's take a quick look at that. You can see here what it looks like from the back, right? Kind of hard to tell in the garage. I'm at a slant. Maybe better from the side here. I mean, it just looks awesome. And it's not to take anything away from this one. I think probably from the same angle out here, it looks just as good to me, except of course, it is just a bit lower. Actually, you know what? And looking at it out here right now in this light, I think it looks pretty darn good. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of my decision. Would you go all in anyway because they just look so much better and I guess are more capable if you're a big time off-roader? Or do you agree? Would you just leave it alone the way that it is? Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.